I was probably a week away from losing my whole business. I was a week away from couldn't make payroll. Yeah, it was wild.
What's up, guys? Today we have special guest Skylar Moon on the pod. What's cracking, bro?
What's going on, brother? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, super excited to jump into your story. You've got a crazy one. So
Yeah.
you're a nightclub owner and you just recently sold it to get into real estate.
Yep.
So how, number one, like, why did you sell the nightclub? And like, maybe we'll talk about how you got into it too.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. Yeah, it's a crazy story from, before, then getting into it, then
Mhm.
obviously the exit of it.
Well, tell us why did you end up selling it? Because I know it was making you a lot of money for like a long time.
Yeah, I was cranking out cash for a long time. So it's a kind of a multifaceted story. But I think the bigger picture was just where I was at in life, where I was
Mhm.
going. There's a couple details that I'll get into, but I think the overall bigger picture was just that it's something that I had prayed about for a long time, which seems really weird coming from a nightclub.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
So
but-
wait, why are you owning the nightclub? Where are you a Christian? What's like the background?
Yeah,
of
so
this stuff?
definitely a Christian.
Okay,
Was
okay.
raised in it. We were, really
Okay,
religious as a
okay.
kid. I mean, to the point there was like no TV.
Really, as a
We had-
kid? you
Yeah,
mean?
no
Wow,
no
okay.
secular music. We didn't have
Wow.
watch any movies and stuff like that.
That's
And
like
so-
the exact opposite of like a nightclub. Then,
Yeah,
right? So-
yeah, exactly. And so, grew up in that, was
Mhm.
Christian, am Christian, my whole life.
Mhm.
Obviously, during the nightclub phase, and I didn't get into it because of anything of, I wasn't a drinker, I wasn't
Okay.
a partier, I wasn't somebody going out. It was strictly
So
a
you
business
owned the nightclub, but
investment.
you weren't drinking in there. You weren't partying or doing.
Well, I
any
got
business.
into that, yeah. So
Okay,
that's where the
okay.
story kind of goes.
Okay.
And nothing crazy. I wasn't getting wild or anything,
Okay.
but I got into it as a business, to make
Okay,
money,
okay.
and got a little bit sucked into the life. Not anything,
Too
crazy.
Okay.
But at the end of it, I could tell over the last. I started in 2020. I bought it during COVID, closed it down, remodeled it, opened it back up April of 21. Went really well for the first 2 years, and then
What is really well for like a nightclub? Like, what?
so again, this is in San Antonio, Texas. We're not
Okay,
in
okay.
Miami, Vegas, or something like
Okay.
that. So we were doing top line a little over $3 million, keeping
Wow,
about
that's,
$1 million
that's
a year.
really
So
really
doing
good.
really
That's
well.
really really
Yeah,
good. So
yeah, that's
like,
good. It's a small
re-
operation though. We were only on
small
3,000
operation
square
making
feet.
you $1 million a year
yeah,
net.
yeah, it was
That's
great.
very very
Yeah,
good.
it was
So,
great.
okay.
It went really well. Considering I had no experience in it, I wasn't
Mhm.
going out. My previous industry before was wireless industry.
Okay.
So totally different industry. From sales background to you're selling phones to selling bottles. Kind of
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
still sales technically. But obviously super different. So anyways, went really well, and over the last little over halfway through, I could just tell, me personally, I'd gone through a few things, and I could tell that I was getting off track. Personally, throughout my 20s, I grinded in the wireless industry, and so not that I was, super far from God or doing stuff that I wasn't supposed to be doing,
Yeah, yeah.
but I just wasn't super. It wasn't, high priority. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
working on grinding.
So what was it? I mean, like, it sounds like in your 20s, you were just working on trying to live the American dream and just make money
Yeah.
or become rich. You're working on your wealth.
And I will get
So-
into this later, I'm sure, but I actually was homeless at one point before that, and so the drive behind making a lot of money.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So so you're homeless at one point. Like, how did you get to homeless?
So I came from a really good family background. Like I said, we were in both mom and dad were there.
Mhm.
Grew up, pretty well off. Nothing, we weren't like rich or anything, but we were,
Mhm.
middle class,
Mhm.
and went to private school to start off, and then was homeschooled. Ended up trying to play golf professionally for a while. So I
Really?
was playing
Really?
golf for, probably from around 11 to 15. Did really
Wow,
well. Got all the
okay.
training and whatnot. But when I turned 15, just some friction between the folks and I felt like I was living kind of half my time I was at a country club with,
Mhm.
those kind of folks, and then half
Yeah.
the time I was at home, homeschooled and
Yeah.
living the, pretty strict Christian life. And so we had a little bit of argument, and I basically
With your parents, you mean?
yeah.
Okay.
I was grown, and I felt like I knew
Yeah.
everything, and I was
Yeah.
very mature for a 15-year-old, very mature for a 15-year-old. And I had been running my own little home businesses since I was 11, so I'd already made money, tens of thousands of dollars before.
Really? So at 15, you're already running your
Yeah,
own
from like
businesses.
11
and so-
years old, I was.
What kind of business are these?
So when I was 11, I started selling. This is back in like 2002, 2003.
Okay.
I was selling stuff for people on eBay because at that point eBay was really
That's
popular,
cranking,
right?
okay.
And so I would just advertise to folks that I knew, hey, if you had used
So,
clothes.
so they would bring you their stuff and you sell it on eBay and take a cut from it.
Yeah, and
So,
I stole. I think
okay.
the first year I sold like $70,000 worth of stuff, and I was
Really?
charging 10%. So you're making like 7 grand as an 11-year-old,
Wow,
you know?
that's crazy.
So yeah, so I always had like an entrepreneur spirit in me. My dad always tells a story that when I was young, I was very different from the other kids. We'd go to the birthday parties where they had the moon bounce and the bouncy house. And rather than jumping in it, I'd go around back to see how it worked and like how's this thing blowing
Just
up.
the curiosity of things and everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I've always had that as a kid. I was an introvert, super introverted. I tell this story a lot too, that my mom, when we would go out to lunch after church on Sunday, that hey, if you don't order your own food from the waitress, you're just not going to eat until you get home. And
that's what your mom told you.
Yeah, and I just wouldn't eat. I wouldn't talk to anybody. So I was just super mega introverted.
Yeah.
I remember that, and just kind of a nerd.
Okay.
You know, played golf and was interested in making money and stuff like that. So, anyways, long story short, I ended up having that kind of headbutting with them, and I ended up just moving out.
So it wasn't you're just like 15 years old and you're just like, I'm out of here, guys. With your
I just left in the middle of the night, actually. I remember that night. I wrote a letter out to the folks and left everything behind. Yeah, it was wild. I was super stubborn, right? Just wanted what I wanted, whatever. And so didn't talk to anybody in my family for like 2 years.
So you literally left at 15 and you're out for 2 years.
I was out. So I wasn't out for super long. It's probably like 6 or 7 weeks, bouncing around, bus stops, friends' houses, people, because they were looking for me, and they would, obviously trying to get me back. I'm 15 years old.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a wild story. So anyways, but no, I knew what I wanted. The night that I left, I said, I'm going to prove everybody, that I can do everything. I can make all the money. I'm never going to ask for anything from anybody. I'm going to do it my own, whatever. So I ended up, after a while, moving in with my grandmother. And she ended up getting me enrolled in a public school because I was homeschooled at the time. So I was out of school for a little while. In Texas, you can't get enrolled, probably anywhere. You can't get enrolled in a public school without parents' signature.
Okay.
So I was out of school for a few weeks. Grandmother ended up talking to the folks. They ended up signing, got into public school, graduated. And from there, I had to just hustle different side hustles to make money, right? So I was mowing lawns. I was mowing grass at a golf course in the morning time from like 4 to 7 a.m., cutting the tees and the greens and the fairways and stuff like that. And so I did that for a while. And then one day I was on a job site for a HOA mowing a lawn, and my phone that I had got ran over by the lawnmower, fell out of my pocket.
Your phone?
Yeah, my cell phone, right? My Cricket phone.
Okay.
And so I needed a new phone. The lady ended up introducing me to a guy that sold phones. So I ended up shadowing him for a while, and somehow I went back to my eBay days, and I started buying refurbished phones off eBay and then selling them to this guy for his retail store, and I was making like $30.
Okay.
But I was thinking to myself, I'm like, dude, you're out here in the sun mowing a lawn for like an hour and a half, making $30, and then you're buying a product off eBay and doing nothing but driving it to them or taking it to them and selling it for $30. So I was like, I can get used to that. So I started then flipping phones, used phones, and then that turned into a whole thing. And I ended up opening, as soon as I graduated high school, I ended up opening my first retail store. And again, it's just a crazy story.
Retail store as in like you're selling like phones?
Used phones, fixing cracked screens, unlocking iPhones.
So like one of those guys with the kiosk kind of like in the middle of the mall and stuff.
Exactly. So I was 18, had no money really, no credit, no history. And some guy had this old beat up shopping center and said, we'll lease you a 6-month lease for $700 a month.
Okay.
It was like probably 900 square feet. And we'll give you 3 months free if you fix it up.
Okay, nice.
So it's like 50% of your whole term is free. Like that never happens anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so, I got a buddy of mine, and we went to Home Depot and rented all the equipment, and we literally just built the place from scratch, painted it, like awesome. It was crazy. And so
I love the hustle. I mean, I feel like a lot of times when you're just starting out, a lot of guys are like, I don't want to put in the sweat equity. I just want to hire people or kind of like.
Well, I didn't have that luxury. I had to make money. I had to eat. And so
but I mean, just I love the hustle, right? In the very beginning, even for myself, when we first started, I didn't have money, so you have to replace it with the sweat equity. But while you're doing that, it actually helps you to appreciate things when you actually do have to pay for things later, and also just kind of ingrains like a good work ethic.
Super good work ethic. And so, I don't even know how I became a really good salesperson. I was talking to people every day, but I went from being the guy that couldn't talk to anybody literally to having to speak to everybody because when you live on your own, you have to kind of get out there. And so
it's all a necessity that you become a salesperson almost.
Exactly. And I don't know, I think there's some natural instincts because I was really good at selling phones and really good at convincing people they needed to upgrade or switch or fix or whatever I was doing.
You're a used sales shop that sold new phones too?
So I was a used sales shop, and then eventually this company called Boost Mobile came in and said, hey, do you want to sell our product? I had no idea what it was, but they're like, hey, we'll pay you like 15% if you just take our monthly payments every month. Okay, cool. So I ended up signing on with them, and after about a year in that store, they said, hey, we're doing a new exclusive program, but you can't sell any of your other products. I said, well, I'm not doing that here. We're making way too much money for that, but I'll do a secondary store. And so I ended up starting a secondary store. The used phone store made way more money but you couldn't copy and paste the model because if you train somebody to fix the phone, they're going to do it on their own. If you train somebody to unlock the phones or how to take the trade-ins, they're going to do it on their own. They don't need you.
So it wasn't scalable, but it was scalable. So the margins were a lot higher, but it just wasn't a scalable model.
Exactly.
Okay.
Whereas with the branded stores, the margins were terrible, but you copy and paste it a million times. There was an RMA process. If the phone was broken, you send it back to the manufacturer. There was a commission structure that you'd pay the reps, and so it was something that was scalable. So I said, you know, I'm going to try another one. So I tried a second store, a third store, and I didn't even think I was profitable until I got to 5 stores.
Wow.
And then finally, after I got to that 5th store, and all this was being funded by the first one, right? And so finally, I got up to that 5th store. I ended up just giving that store to a partner of mine, the first one, because I wasn't there anymore, and then my profitability was just going down, so I wasn't spending time on it. And so I ended up growing that business from the time I was 18 in 2009 I started until COVID of 2020, so about 11 years in that business. Grew up to 42 different stores.
So just like you, I mean, like, so you're just opening up stores every few months, it sounds like. And then,
so for the first couple years, it was just, you know, 1 through 5 took like 3 or 4 years, right? And then I stuck at about 7 until about 2017. From 2017 to 2019, I went from 11 to the 42 really fast.
What is the process of opening a new store? So you find a location like in a mall or something?
Yeah, so I was the guy for everything. So I didn't take it up until, from 2009 till 2017 or 18, I didn't take any commercial loans out at all. I just couldn't, you know, I was still young, I had no credit. And so, and I didn't know anything about money. There was no Instagram back then. There was none of this online money. It was all just like, you know, old school.
You're just trying to figure it out yourself, basically.
Exactly. No mentors, you know, I didn't have anybody growing up. And so, I mean, I was doing everything from site search. So
trying to find where you're in the location.
Looking up demographics, right? Trying to find a rent that fits the cost structure. I was my own realtor, talking to the landlords. You know, I mean, I'd work with a couple realtors here and there, but learning how to negotiate leases, right? Doing all that part. I was hiring. I was HR. I was training department. I was the firing.
Accounting too, everything.
Accounting. I mean, literally everything. That's crazy.
I mean,
years
the thing
and years and years.
So you open up 42 stores basically with no knowledge from scratch. Just kind of figuring out and hustling your way through.
And I wasn't smart enough to get on YouTube or nothing like that because it really wasn't a thing.
But it was, YouTube
2011, 12, it really wasn't a thing, right? I mean, if you think about it, the iPhone didn't even launch until 2008.
Really?
And it was exclusive to AT&T until 2012. I mean,
really?
So this stuff really blew, and that's why we did so well is because there was a conversion cycle from non-smartphone, Palm Pilots, flip phones to the smartphone when Android started launching. So we did really good up until about 2018. And then that's when there was some saturation in the market, and it was much harder to get people to.
So what I mean, so like, walk us through the process of opening one of these stores. So like,
so site search. You know, you do the demographics. You didn't have to go to corporate to get it approved. You know, hey, is this somewhere that you want? Are we close to another dealer? There's something that y'all can see that, you know. So they would help you out with some of the demographics and what they were looking for. And then I just got really good at it. After you do it, you know, a certain amount of times, you just get really good at it.
42 stores. How long was the drive from like store number 1 to store number 42?
So eventually I was in 5 different cities across Texas, which is a large state, right? So I'm based in San Antonio, which is kind of heart of Texas. We'd go down to McAllen, which is about 4.5 hours south. We'd go down to Laredo, which is about 2 hours southwest. We'd go straight west to Del Rio, Eagle Pass. I think that's all the cities we had in San Antonio.
So it's basically like 6 hours between like the different stores to drive and make sure.
So eventually at the end of my career, I was on the road just all the time.
Just driving from store to store. Just
I mean, some days, you know, so I would be in San Antonio on Monday, Tuesday I'd be in Laredo, Wednesday I'd be in Del Rio, Thursday I'd be in Eagle Pass, then Friday maybe I'd go down to McAllen or whatever. And so I was just traveling all the time.
So owning 42 stores by yourself, no partners.
No partners, never had a partner. Had a really good team though over the years. I built up, you know, a good team. So one of my store managers ended up graduating into an area manager. And then same thing for another guy, ended up being a district manager for 3 different markets. And then obviously we had store managers under them. And
so why you had these 42 stores pumping and running? How much were you making, let's say, like yearly from all
So honestly, you don't make a ton of money from the stores. And then my thing, since I didn't take any bank loans out, I was funding all the growth. And so it's extremely, we were getting.
So you're putting money back into the
because I mean, I was the GC as well. I was going to the city pulling the permits. I was doing
all the renovations for all the stores.
Yeah, because we were getting. The part that really slowed me down a lot is rather than getting second-gen spaces that you could just rehab, I was getting a lot of first-gen spaces. And so that your time to entry is, you know, forever because you've got to go through the whole construction process. And then your money is just, you're tying up money until you get the TI back from the landlord. If you're getting a certain amount of TI, sometimes they're just tenant improvements,
Okay,
right?
it's basically
so you're
like the landlord will give you money to like renovate the house or
Right.
renovate the
Right,
commercial
the space,
space.
yeah.
Okay.
Or they just give it to you as a white box where they'd put
Okay.
up the shell of the space, but
Mhm.
then you still got to run your electrical, you still got to run your plumbing, you still got to run,
Mhm.
all the carpet and
So you're
whatever
kind
kind
of
of
doing a
paint.
little bit of real estate during this
Doing
thing.
some
It's
real
almost like
estate, yeah.
you're not flipping houses residentially, but you're
Yeah.
flipping kind of like
The
commercial
space,
spaces,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
you're taking a box that's like that needs a lot of work. You're renovating it to make it your own, like
Right.
basically your own store. Then now you're up and running it.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So I learned a lot about construction by default, even though I
mhm.
wasn't in the construction business. I
Yeah,
learned a lot
yeah,
about
yeah,
construction during that phase. So again, we floated a decent amount of cash. I think at one point our highest point we did like 22 million in sales one year.
Wow.
But we're operating at like a almost 2% margin because all the money was either getting paid in operations or in growth, right? We're funding all the growth of these new stores. And then eventually I got into, I got some loans from the bank, but it was very high interest because I had never gotten a commercial loan. So some of those kind of like predatory loans, but I was like, dude, we're on fire. We got to grow. So whatever, just take on the loan. So I actually got into a place in 2008. This was the first time because from the time I moved out up until 2018, I mean, everything I touched just went to gold, right? And we just wasn't rich, but I mean, I probably had
success.
I probably had $150,000 to $200,000 salary. I lived decent. I was always really, really good at living well below my means. I told the story. I mean, I think so. If you're making 150, 200K a year for 7 years, you could easily, buy a Rolex, right? That was always my thing. I never bought a Rolex until after the exit. I never really. I had decent cars, but I never had any.
What Rolex did you end up buying?
A Datejust, yeah.
Nice.
Something classic, nothing too crazy.
Nice.
So even at that, even after I sold and had a couple mil liquid in the bank, I wasn't going crazy.
So after you sold all the stores, you had a couple million liquid in the bank.
So that's where the exit came in. Yeah, that's where the money came in. Is at the exit.
So like the cash flow wasn't great, but because you're investing to all the stores, there was equity in all like the locations and everything, all the build outs and all that stuff.
So a good buddy of mine in Louisiana, he was my exact same age and had almost my same story, except for he started probably 8 years after I did, but he surpassed me. His thing was that he didn't go in building any new stores. He only bought existing high-producing stores. So he'd go into Louisiana and find out which stores were high-producing and, just found out that the guy was trying to get out or made them a high offer to get out. And so even though he may have had technically a little bit more cost to get started, he already had generating revenue from day one.
And then you're looking at like the time, like all the wasted time. He doesn't have any wasted time.
Well, so the business is this. There's two ways to make money. You don't make any money on the phones. The phones are not, you don't make any money. Yeah. Any money you do make is probably going to commissions to your rep anyway. So you literally make no money on the phone. The name of the game is a residual business. The more customers that activate under your store, the activation ID, and then stay on there, you're getting a small residual every month. So if your bill's $50 a month, we get $250 or $5 a month out of it. And so you want to build a large customer base. So retention is big. You don't want them to go to another network because then you lose your residual. So building a residual base, it takes time, right? You may do 50 activations month one, and then month two, 20% churn off. So then you got to do another 50. And so it'll grow over time. And then the same thing with your payment. So if you're taking a $100 monthly bill, we as a store maybe keep like $750 out of that or whatever it was at the time. Right. And so if you can get your store to start getting people to come in and make payments versus doing auto pay, which, increasingly became harder and harder. And so if you're buying stores that already are taking $100,000 a month in payments and already have a $50,000 a month or $20,000 a month residual, you're already way ahead of me because it's going to take me 18 months after I get open to even get there, right? And so he paid a little bit more up front to get going, but he had that, in 6 months he's recouping his money, whereas I might have a 36-month timeline just to break even, right? And so that was real smart. So I got to a point in 2018, for the first time ever, I was probably a week away from losing my whole business. I was a week away from couldn't make payroll.
Just because like cash flow issues.
Cash flow, yeah. So it wasn't that the business was bad. It was just I got into kind of a predatory loan, and they were taking out every Friday, just a ton of payments.
I see this happen all the time with real estate investors.
Over leverage,
You're like, you have all the equity stored in the things, but you don't have cash in hand to either pay your interest or your loans or whatever it is, right? So it's not like it's like good. The business in general is solid and healthy, but you could lose it because you don't know how to manage your cash flow, right?
Yeah, like we've talked about before. You make one or two bad decisions. You open up one or two underperforming stores. So I know you've got a Rolodex of 32 stores. If 3 of them are bad, it didn't seem like the biggest thing in the world, but if you're on such a tight margin because, your bills are high, you've got a ton of overhead, and then you've got interest coming out.
And at the time, there's no way for you to like raise private money or to kind of like ask
I didn't know anything about
take out a private loan or anything. Like it was basically like
there probably was ways, but I was so into my business because I was, I was the man that was doing it. Still, even to that day, doing everything.
You're wearing so many hats, right? So you're just so focused over there, and so like it just, yeah, and plus like I think when we're as like normal people, we're just not aware of where like the sources of money are. Like you can take a HELOC, you can take personal loans, all the different things from banks until you're kind of in either an investor or like in the finance world.
Exactly. And so that was definitely not my background.
Okay.
And so
2018, we're on the brink of bankruptcy.
I was within a week of not being able to pay employees, and obviously if you don't pay them, they quit. If they quit, stores that open, and it just snowballs really fast. And so, I mean, I was almost paralyzed. I remember vividly the apartment I lived in. I was on my couch. I couldn't get up. I don't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to eat. I was like puking all day. I just felt like
the
crap.
stress.
Yes. I was like, dude, all this work I've done for the last decade, and it's just going to be
crashing down
for nothing. Yeah, I'm going to start from zero again. And so somehow I saw an ad from Smart Biz Credit or one of those sites, and did the application, and they're like, dude, you have a ton of cash flow. I'm like, yeah, I know. I just can't, keep up with the other loan that I had. And so they ended up refinancing the loan.
Okay.
Instead of weekly payments, it was monthly payments. Instead of, X amount of percentage rate, it was, much, much lower.
Do you remember what the interest rate for the predatory loan was?
It's probably like credit card rates, 25%, 27%, But I mean, when it's, a couple $100,000, it adds up really quick. And so anyway, so I think it ended up being like a $350,000 term loan over 5 years, which really isn't that great, right? But compared to what it was crazy. My payment was probably cut by 2/3, right?
Wow.
And so that saved us, and then
so it gave you life, right, to continue to.
Well, not only did it give you life, but it also made me refocus. Okay, so we've got these 40 stores. Which are the 3 that gave us the problem? These 3. Okay, what do we need to do? We need to get rid of those 3. What, why is this one not performing? Can we fix it? Are there any leases coming up that we can get out of? And so we ended up scaling down a little bit. So going from the 42 probably down to like 36-ish or whatever the number was.
What's crazy is, so like in our business as flippers, like we have the same problem managing cash flow. Like we have money that we have allocated to projects, but we have to pay our lender. We pay our lenders monthly. So then that goes out. You got to pay your contractors. You got to pay your employees. And there was a point in our business where we were like 2 months or like a month and a half away from like not having money for payroll. And I was like so stressed out. I was like,
it's the worst feeling.
It's
ever.
I was like, dude, if we don't have money to pay our workers, like I'll just like, because I mean, so we're gonna have to prioritize our lenders, right? So we pay all our lenders. We can't pay our workers, and month 2 or 3 we can't pay our lenders. Like it's
it just falls
like
quick fast.
Yeah, I was so stressed out, and like. But then, like, thank God we found our way out of there. Like, we figured it out. We were able to, like, sell a project on time, etc. These things. But, like, I remember that feeling of, like, so stressed out of money and, like, cash flow. Like, so ever since then, I'm, like, over conservative. Like, I need, like, 6 months of operating income just because I never want to have that feeling ever again. So.
Yeah, it's definitely a place that, if you've never been there, don't get there. And once you've been there, it's a place that you never want.
But it's such a. I'm so happy that like I got there because like it's a learning lesson that.
It's an incredible lesson.
Feeling that I felt, I'll like never forget that. So like just moving forward, like I'm just a lot more conservative on our operating budgets, just because like I never want to feel that feeling of like hopelessness or like just like suck ever
despair,
again. Despair is like exactly what you think. So
anyways, that's 2018. Okay. Get through it. Now we're close to 2019. We get in 2019. And I'm back on fire again. I got rid of the stores we needed to, and I was like the man at the company at this point. I mean, I'm getting flown out twice a year to all these conferences. Met the CEO of Sprint. Sprint owned our company.
Wow. Okay.
So met the CEO of Sprint several times. I mean, they're flying you to Miami to go to these reward trips. And I would say out of probably a couple thousand dealers or franchisees across the country, within the top 5 consistently for several years. And they never knew about my financial struggles, and they just saw me as the man. And so anyways, it was kind of flying high on that deal. But between 2017 and 2019, I don't know if you remember the Sprint T-Mobile merger that was going on.
Sounds familiar. Okay.
So Sprint and T-Mobile were merging. Okay. Well, T-Mobile owned Metro PCS, Sprint owned our company, Boost Mobile. So there was question of who was going to go away if they merged, blah, blah, blah. And so there was just a lot of uncertainty from the parent companies. And so basically they started turning off a lot of our activity. So if we would have given you a free phone to switch over, now we're not giving you anything. So our sales activity went real, tanks basically. And not only that, but then when you're trying to sell yourself, what do you want? You want it to look really profitable. How do you become profitable? You squeeze us, right? So our margins became super compressed. So then now you've got all these stores. And so anyways, we were still making money, but it was, way harder and way less money.
Got it.
So I was already like, man, what am I going to do next? I need to figure something out. Well, and this is funny, is this story actually kind of repeats. And COVID comes.
Okay.
So now you've got all these retail stores across all these different cities, and nobody can walk into them because of lockdowns and all this other stuff, right?
Crazy.
Luckily, we were still like an essential business because people,
Okay.
but there's just tons of rules now. Now you've got to have the mask, and you got to put all the signs in the stores, and
people just weren't going out. They were just
distancing.
all staying home. So like you just did not have foot traffic to like
Yeah,
these
nobody's going
malls,
shopping for a new iPhone whenever everybody's stuck at home, right? They'll
on
buy
the
it
computer,
online,
whatever.
right? And then
Yeah.
the parent company's pushing. How do we get initiatives to ship people's phones right to their house? Well, that cuts us
Everything's
out.
going way more digital, like online and everything.
Right. So I could kind of see that coming, and I mean, I timed this retarded, crazy. I have the papers in my house. June 20th, 2020 is literally the hardest. COVID was announced like in February, right? It landed on the docks, and then March, April was like, oh my God, things are going to crap.
Yeah.
I signed my docs on June 2022 to sell about 60% of my stores. Found a buyer. Wasn't the best exit ever, obviously, because timing wasn't bad, but I'm out, right? I've got a good exit. Like I said, that's when I had, over $1 million in the liquid in the accounts. Still was able to take advantage of some of the PPP stuff and the other government programs because I still had, 40% of my stores. I still had employees. I had record of the employees for prior years. So that was kind of the beginning of the end of my wireless career, and I was super happy about it.
Sounds like I'd be stoked too.
Yeah, and so I kept a big part of my team. I mean, I lost a lot of my team. Obviously, what I did is again, I'm here in the middle of Texas, and my stores are all around my city.
Okay.
So I basically sold off all my border stores.
Okay.
And I sold off a big chunk of my stores in town, and I kept all my best stores.
Okay. Smart,
right?
Okay.
So now I've got all my best stores just rocking and rolling.
How many stores do you have at this point?
About 14.
Okay.
So I had about 14 left, all in my town. Wasn't having to go out of town. So anyways, I told my guys, I'm checking out. Like, I had 2 weeks before we even closed, I'd already bought a jet ski and a boat. Like, I'm out of here. I already know what I'm doing. It's COVID. You can't do anything anyways. We couldn't travel, but, I'd been working literally for, over a little over a decade at this point. I mean, I'm talking about, like, wearing all those hats, 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., missed funerals, missed weddings, never went to the movies, never went out, never drank, never went to parties, just nothing. I'm working for a decade, super hard. Had I put that energy in other things, I probably would have been way more well off. But, you
well, the thing is, it's crazy, like, so this goes to the point where, like, the vehicle that you're in makes a big difference in your success, right? Because, like, you look at, let's say, somebody who's working at McDonald's, right? Like, they can work, like, 80 hours a week. Yeah. The most they'll make, let's say, like, 50 grand a year, something along those lines, right? Exactly. And you're working 80 hours a week in, like, the mobile business, crushing it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still making it good, but, like, if you were, let's say, put that into, like, flipping houses or real estate or finance or whatever, something else with a bigger upside, same energy and just, like, a bigger result.
Right. So. The only good thing, or one of the main takeaways I have is just I've wore so many hats that I'm very competent in so many different things. Whether it's starting the business from the structuring and formation of it, whether it's talking to real estate agents and brokers and landlords and
small business is no joke, man. Like, and so, like, for a person to just run a successful small business, whatever it is,
very hard.
You have to wear so many hats, like you said. Like, like, there's the real estate side, there's the accounting, there's the hiring, the firing, the training, the skill set of whatever that business
learning
is,
how to play politics with corporate, right? Because that is a huge, being a franchisee, they've got
negotiations, right?
Why is this guy going to get this location and not this guy? Who's going to be the guy when this guy's 6 stores go out of business? Who gets to buy him? Why is it this dealer, not this dealer? So there's a lot of stuff that people don't realize going on in the background as far as, like, having to
just business in general, right? And so so you're cutting your teeth in these things. What does exit look like in that?
So again, COVID wasn't the best amount of money, but you've got over $1 million, close to 2 in liquid right there. And then I just took off 6 months. I was not that I was burnt out, but I was burnt out, and I was ready to just get away. So anyways, there wasn't much to do. So I told my team, y'all got this, and it was literally on, like, autopilot. They were running 30-something stores. Now they're running 14 of the best stores. All the problems are gone. Like, they're good to go. So that went on from June 2nd until about late October of that same year, 2020. Okay, so now I'm tired of screwing off too much because, I've already, taken 5 months off. Now it's time to figure out the next thing. And so I was at Lifetime Fitness working out with a buddy of mine, and we were doing chest that day. And I'm like, dude, I'm bored. We got to do something. It's cold now. The lake's not an option anymore. We've already been, like, 29 weeks in a row. Like, that's done. What do we need to do? And so I was like, let's start a business. And, I said, I got the money to do it. I got the time to do it. Let's figure something out. So we're like, what do? We do a car lot? Boring. We do a restaurant? Make it boring. We do a bar. What about a nightclub? And so, that's, again, me thinking
Yeah,
future,
yeah, yeah,
everything
yeah,
shut
yeah,
down now.
yeah.
You probably buy one super cheap. And so that night we left and we went downtown. We started looking, there's all these empty spaces because everybody shut down. So
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
lease
yeah.
signs everywhere. We're
Yeah.
like, dude, we can get like a bad spot on the.
Buy things for a penny on the dollar, right? It's
Yeah.
the whole thing
So,
with like the Warren Buffett, right? When it's everybody is like trying to get in, like you pull back when everybody's running away, then you jump in and you get a good deal. So yeah.
Exactly. And so started to look into that and made some calls with some people I knew from my, from when I was like 21. I had a little period of like 6 months when I went out, and so I had met managers and owners and stuff like that. So granted, now this time I'm like 28, 29, and so I called them and I said, hey, do you want to partner and do a spot? No, I can't. Called another buddy of mine that I knew. You want to do a spot? No, me and my partner have an exclusive. We don't do any deals with anybody else. Okay. So I'm like, how am I going to do this? Well, then one of the other guys ends up calling me back and says, hey, I can't do anything with you, but if you want to come into a spot we're about to reopen, you can come partner. Cool. 5% was like $70,000 threw in. I did it strictly just to learn the business, and I was going to go do my thing.
Yeah.
And so the first owners meeting we had, I met with one of the other owners in the group, and I said, basically what I'm telling you, I'm just doing this to learn. I'm going to do my own. He's like, you want your own? I was like, yeah. He's like, I got a guy to say one today. I'm like, we literally drove straight from that meeting to the other club, and he's like, David, this guy wants to buy your club. And he's like, really? Cool. I'm in like tons of debt because of COVID. Let's get out of it. And so anyway, so I literally bought the club for what he had.
What was it?
140 grand.
That's it?
Yeah, paid $90,000 to the landlord for back rent, like $15,000 to specs, the liquor vendor, like $10,000 to the state of Texas for sales taxes and some other stuff.
Really? Oh wow.
And so the guy didn't walk away with any money, but he just needed to.
It's almost like a flip house, right? Like there's the shit seller, one seller.
Yeah.
You bought it for basically pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, nothing.
And then like later on you can possibly flip this or like keep it as like a cash flowing rental or business, right? So crazy.
Yeah, different way to get into real estate, but it's kind of the same play. So anyway, so bought it for like 140. Shut it down. Obviously, it was already kind of shut down, but completely shut it down. Rechanged the name, came up with new logos. But again, I'm doing all this stuff on my own. Me and my brother designed the logo.
The same way that you started the stores, so like you're bootstrapping. Like I don't know if you guys are doing the renovations yourself too or not.
So I have many videos of me with sledgehammers knocking down walls, like just bootstrapping it. Me and my buddy. The day we signed, December 2nd, what year is that? 2020. Yeah, same year. Signed the documents, went to Lowe's and bought these 2 sledgehammers, and we're just banging out walls.
I love it.
Yeah, we've got all the documentation. We stripped out the floor. I mean, we did a lot of it ourselves, just me and my buddy. And my buddy wasn't an owner or anything. He was just a good friend of mine. He was my best friend at the time. Like we were working out every day. We'd boat every weekend, and so I just
that's
told him,
also fun too. Like whenever you're having like a new venture,
yes,
and then like you're doing it with a buddy, and like it's exciting because like you see the potential of it, right? Yeah. And then so like if your buddy is like he's on the same page, you see the potential. Even though it's work, it's fun and it's exciting to do that.
And so I mean, I've got the text messages going back and forth. We're trying to figure out names and stuff. And so we ended up calling it Club Desire Nightclub. Okay. But it was DZI with the big like I on top of it and R. So it's spelled kind of weird. It was funky. The logo was super dope. Me and my brother did it. Me and my brother built the website. And I mean, I know nothing about this business, and it's a fairly complicated
I
business.
can imagine.
There's a lot of things going on. I couldn't name you in our liquor inventory room. I couldn't name you like 2 bottles. Like I knew
because
Ciroc.
You're not a drinker. That's
I knew Ciroc and maybe like Grey Goose or whatever. Outside of that, I knew nothing. And so, I had 4. I didn't know when we were going to open. I had negotiated with the landlord to give me. I said, hey, I just gave you 90 grand to get you caught up. Give me 3 months of abatement while I do the renovations. And he was cool with that. So we did that. So I mean, I didn't hire a designer. I didn't hire, anybody. We did the name. I did the color. I was on Pinterest looking up, color ideas and patterns and whatnot. So I ended up ordering some lights off of China to figure out what kind of lighting am I going to put in here. So I ordered samples from China. I'm like, dude, I'm over my head on this. This is going to be a big project. And so anyways, so just surrounding myself with the right people. I ended up going, at this time, clubs were starting to open back up. And so I would, for the first time, kind of making my way around and checking out different clubs, meeting security guys, meeting managers, so I, strategically kind of going out.
The thing is, you've already built some teams before in the
I know how to put them together.
Built and managed teams in the past.
Yeah,
so
know how to put them together.
So like it's like a different business, but it's the same skill set of leadership and kind of building teams and like training.
It's exactly the same. And so that's what I did. I poached a couple guys. Who's the guy doing the light and sound for this club? I ended up poaching them. Came over. Got him from there. The crazy thing was I was 30 days out from open. So at this point, we kind of knew, okay, we're going to open in the next 30 days. This is about March. We opened April 7th. So at the beginning of March, I still didn't have a general manager. And I can't do it. I don't know anything about, TABC, the Texas Alcohol and Beverage Commission. I didn't know anything about, the licensing and all that stuff. And so I ended up, again, just a referral. Guy said, hey, this guy has actually managed this same nightclub from 2009 until basically like 6 months ago, right before you came in. He got out of the business. You got to hire this guy. So interviewed him, ended up working out. He is my best friend till today still.
Really? Awesome.
And so, anyways, worked out really good. Put a great team together. We did the marketing right. Our campaign just happened to work out that the governor of Texas had just released everybody to go out again 2 weeks before we opened.
Awesome.
And so there was pent-up demand like crazy. We're a mile and a half from the biggest college in San Antonio. It's probably 30,000 students. And so we just marketed as a college club. And we did, like I said, that place had been a nightclub from 2009, basically when I started my phone career, all the way until when I took it over. And it had been wildly successful every time. And we crushed everybody else's numbers. I mean, we just blew past everybody else's numbers. So in San Antonio, again, it's a small town. Clubs typically only open Friday, Saturday night. And they're doing, the smaller places are doing 5,000 to 10,000 a night. Bigger places at the time were doing 20,000 to 30,000 a night, right? We opened up on a Wednesday. And we're doing 25,000, 30,000 a night. So we ended up opening Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and every once in a while we do like a one-off Sunday event. I mean, so we were crushing. And my cost, because I was a business guy and I knew how to keep, and I knew how to, because I had to run the phone store, so things, our margins, even if you weren't growing, you were probably still at 11% margin. So I mean, I'm used to like small margins. So even though we're in a business that has huge margins now, I ran it retarded thin. And so, and I just didn't know better. I didn't know what staff you needed.
I love it. I mean, like, I feel like that the skill set translates so well. And so as you're progressing in your real estate career, the exact same skill set, business skills and mindset is going to absolutely translate over here. So
I mean, it's just wild just having to learn. And I don't know what guy, I think I just felt I was, I had so much cash in the bank. I just wasn't scared of it. I mean, I bought everything. I probably ended up investing 870,000 cash into that place. So almost half of my net worth at that point. And I just wasn't scared. I mean, I just went after it. I surrounded myself with good people. We had an incredible team from, our security guys to our, our bottle girls, our bartenders, our management staff, our marketing team. I mean, everybody was
the thing is, it makes such a big difference who your team is. And so, like, there's
night and day.
Number one is having, like finding and, like, recruiting the best team, but also, like, keeping them around, because why would they want to follow you, So there's definitely a leadership aspect to business ownership where people maybe not see there's like, it's simple, you just hire good people, but how do you keep and retain good people, right?
So, that's the key, right? And so my secret's always just been like, even though I'm boss man, I'm always like, I'm just a normal guy. I preach this to people all the time. I am the most normal guy in the world, whether I have things or don't have things or, go to places or meet people or whatever. I'm still just like the most normal guy in the world. I would still be there at the end of the night picking up trash off the floor because I just don't care. I'm that guy, right? Whether, maybe some people say, oh, you shouldn't be doing, that kind of stuff. And not that I was being the janitor, but like I take pride in what I'm doing. So I don't mind if I see something on the floor.
Chipping
like I'll pick it up.
Right. You have pride in your club and your establishment.
Exactly. And so I think that's a big part of it. We would do a ton of team building stuff, do Top Golf nights and just in that specific industry, it was such a breath of fresh air because most owners are in it
because they're a-holes this way.
And they're in it, because their playground, they can bring their chicks, or they can, bring their friends and get free alcohol. And so again, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't doing any of that stuff, and I was there as a boss, as an owner. And because I ran the operation well, everybody made buku money. I mean, we had girls walking out sometimes with $2,000 a night.
Wow.
And so, of course, they're going to love their job, right? They get to work 2 nights a week or 3 nights because you rotate them. So they work a couple nights a week, and they're making, anywhere between $1,000 and $4,000 a week. And so everybody's just, like, super happy, right? So keeping the morale high in that business, showing that you actually care. I mean, having, like, our bouncers make sure that all the girls are treated right. Because some places just don't. I mean, I saw some of the craziest stuff. I saw bars where the owners would make the staff like do drugs in the office and make them drink to go sell more and do it. So I mean, it's just a really crazy business, right? And so for me, it was just like, this is a business. I'm going to take care of you, make sure. So just acting with integrity, treating people like they're people, the basic stuff that you should be doing, but in an industry that's so perverted and so different, right? It was a breath of fresh air for everybody. And so anyways, it worked out really, really well.
So you guys are doing $3 million top line, $1 million net. I mean, that's a 30% margin. It's huge, and plus, I mean, it's obviously like you're doing really well.
Yeah, the industry standard's about 17 to 20, right? So I was above where everybody else was.
Double like the sound length with this stuff almost.
So I mean, we did really well for a while. Granted, in this business, the runway is short. nobody wants to go to the same club with the same DJs and the same look. I mean, unless you're in Vegas. But even here, they refresh and they do remodels and add lights and add different lineups and stuff like that. And so I knew kind of going into it. My lease was only 4 years.
Okay.
The original lease was 5. The guy that I took it over from, he had already been in it once, so I took over his 4 years. And so I knew that the runway was probably fairly short. And that's one of the things that I should have done. Some of the advice that I had gotten was year 2 is when you sell.
Just sell it, yeah.
Year 2
at
is
the,
when
at
you're
the height
yeah.
when you're still making a lot of money. It's not turning down yet. Like the next owner's gonna come in, they're gonna buy it at a premium at that point.
So the crazy thing was, I had an idea to sell, but every month we just kept going.
I mean, you're making so much money, it's hard to say no, right?
And kept going.
So
then by this time, and I'll admit this for the first time ever on camera, but by this time I'm not super caught up in the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because I'm still running a business, but I more than I had ever been in my life was caught up in the lifestyle, right? Doing lots of, and it was just a lot for me. It was just fun. So we'd work really hard all night. We'd make tons of money. Everybody's happy. Well, then we'd go we'd have like 50 people in my house doing an after party, right? So and then for me it was just a fun thing. It wasn't like anything bad. I had a girlfriend the entire. I actually had got a girlfriend like a month before I opened the club.
Okay.
And so pretty much for the whole time. So I mean, I was a good guy. I was loyal, whatever. So I wasn't like doing anything. It was just fun. We had such a good environment. Everybody was so happy all the time. And so, but I got in. I was away from the gym. I don't think I went to the gym maybe 3 times in the first 2 years. And I had been religious. I was in the best shape of my life going into it. So just getting carried away. Not in a bad sense, drugs and all that stuff. No, it was just, hey, it's just such a fun environment. I'm around such good people. I love all these people.
The thing is, like, you're having so much success, like, why sell, right? So if you, let's say, hypothetically, you were to sell this point, if you're making $1 million in net, what kind of multiple would you sell this at?
So typically, because again, people in the industry know that it's a short license. It's not something that you're going to, a laundromat's going to last 50 years, and so you'll pay a high multiple, whereas this might last, if you're a good operator, and your pool of buyers is so small, because it has to almost be somebody who's been in the business, and so they're going to shark you. So it probably would have sold for 2.5x.
Okay,
So
well, I mean, that's decent. So you could probably exit at that time for like maybe 2.5 mil or something. Okay.
That's pretty quick you could have got something done like that. You could have asked for more, but I don't think you would have sat on it. Probably would have got it, but pretty quick you probably got out 2.5x. So that's that. But then as time went on, then I think a little more. I don't think I ever had an ego, because I've never been an ego guy. But you really get, oh man, I am kind of the man, right? You got all this money, so now you're buying.
There is some nuance to this, I think, because naturally, like, you're a humble dude, right? But then if you once you're having success for a long period of time, and people are constantly telling you how awesome you are, and like you're just
and they always want to be. I mean, everywhere you go, you've just got like an entourage with you. I went from living in an apartment, literally when I opened the club, I lived in a $1,500 a month apartment.
Okay.
I had $2 million in the bank. I didn't care. Like I was just the most normal dude. I had my little Rolex. I had my $1,500 a month apartment, and I had like an $800 Range Rover payment. That was it. And a boat. I bought a boat. Whatever. So I mean, I was still super, super. Again, I always lived well below my means. Which is probably a big part of the success as well. But gradually, got into buying more jewelry. Gradually got into buying. I went to a $1 million house pretty quick.
Okay.
Right? Got the Lamborghini pretty quick. Bought the second really expensive car pretty quick.
The typical F-boy at this point.
Yeah,
right? You got
exactly.
$1 house and the Lambo and the Rolex.
Yeah, and it was just, for me, it was like, one, that's kind of what I always wanted. From the day I moved down when I was 15, I'm never going to ask anybody for anything. I'm going to show everybody I can make it. And I was there. I was like, dude, I've done it. I'm making retarded money. I can't spend it fast enough, because it just every night, I might spend $50K this weekend, and then by Sunday it's already back in the bank. It's
That's
like,
crazy.
Dude, you can't spend it fast enough. And so then I did get into like probably hanging around some of the wrong folks. Again, not in a sense of like doing crazy stuff, bad things, but just
it's a slow
partying
fade,
all
right?
the time.
It's just a slow fade.
Every
right?
weekend, let's go out somewhere. So then you're traveling to Dallas, and you're going to Houston. I came to Vegas, I think, 25 times in 1 year.
Wow.
And these aren't cheap trips. These are, $10,000 tables. And so then 20,000 at the casino. And so it just doesn't matter, because let me just go back Sunday and it's there again, right? And so I did waste a lot of money. I didn't really see it as a waste at the time, just because it was like, dude, I've earned every single bit of this, and I'm having so much fun, and whatever. Fast forward, and if I had to do it again, I think I would have still done a lot of the celebratory things. I think just in a toned back, manner. Because I literally probably could have been set for life if I had just invested a small portion of that. And so I got really short-sighted. And that's why I think I didn't sell, because I was enjoying it too much at that point, right? And I was still running it as a business. I would still go in and make sure that we're profitable and run reports and do the things I needed to do as a good business owner, make sure my team was taken care of, making sure everything was there on that end. But I think I just got, this is like, I'm living the life that I've always wanted, right? And I've got all the friends that I never had because I was too busy. I've got all the,
the attention,
cars,
you got
everything
the
you want. You're
status,
living
right, everything.
the dream that everybody wants, right? And not even in not in like, I'm not screwing girls every weekend. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. Like, so in a wholesome way, doing that. However, okay, so I got short-sighted and probably should have sold, and then started making, on top of spending stupid money on dumb things, started making bad investments. Investing in like shiny object centers. So now I've got all this money and everything I've ever done turns to gold. And even though I almost went broke, I've got so much extra money I can just invest in dumb stuff. So buy e-com stores, that all went to crap, right? Buy some other online stores and different things went to crap. Just investing in dumb stuff, right? Trying to buy the check mark before you could get it on Instagram and trying to buy followers and all this. I mean, just wasting money on stupid stuff, right? So it's just going on both ends now. Bad investments, bad, giving out personal loans on businesses they're going to open that don't end up opening, just dumb stuff. I mean, I've, end up just really kind of getting off the rails for a while, just losing track of everything because, things are just going so well, right? And so finally, the last kind of dagger, or the thing that kind of really started this turnaround or this turn to where I am now, is a buddy of mine and I decided to open a restaurant, which is like, dude, what are you talking about? That's like the worst investment of all time. But it wasn't going to be just a restaurant. We were going to have like a club aspect to it. You've seen like Poppy Steak and all that stuff, to where it's a steakhouse, but they have like, the gold case that comes out, the music, and the lights. And so we had it. It looked like a nightclub. We were a steakhouse, which is even worse. It's the worst kind of restaurant to open. It's a steakhouse, right? It's the hardest one to open. And then on top of that, you add in, we're going to make it like a club. And so it was good on paper. It was just really hard to execute, right? And so I've never been in the restaurant business. He's in real estate. He's a wholesaler. He's never been in the restaurant business. I mean, his career was military, straight into wholesaling, retailing, real estate. And so, we just thought that we could just do it, whatever. So we ended up failing miserably. Opened in February, closed in December. Fastest open and close you probably see.
What have you lost like in that? Like, what's that?
We probably took a $750K loss.
Really?
And so divide that by both of us. We're in a couple, 300 grand or so.
Okay.
So now it's like, okay, you've made tons of bad mistakes. One, not selling the club. Two, blowing a lot of money on trips and just dumb stuff, bottles and tables and whatever. Then a bunch of, I wouldn't say there were small bad investments. Over 100 grand, 200 grand in small investments that went bad. And now you've got this big restaurant thing. So it's like, okay, now, party's over. Everything you touch doesn't go to gold anymore.
Buckle down, figure it out now.
So now I'm like, well, shoot. So now at this point, I'm doing one-on-one with Ryan.
Okay, so this is where we met, actually, right?
This is where we met.
Like, you started getting into real estate. We both have Ryan, and we both paid for.
Well, I had always like, over my boost career, I had like Section 8s and fourplexes, so I've always been like in
just buying
real estate
rentals here and there.
But I was so busy, it was just kind of like a side thing, and I didn't really enjoy it at all. Never was super successful at all with it, but it was, hey, everybody says you got to buy real estate. Okay, let me buy. I bought a condo and went to a fourplex and whatever. So I've got a little bit of experience, and then obviously the construction side from my business days. So I've got some experience with it. Well, then my business partner, he speaks a lot of the same conferences that Ryan does. And so I would just always travel with him when he's going to Dallas or to Houston or wherever. And so that's how I met Ryan. They would speak at the same conferences. We'd see each other and, hey, hi behind stage, whatever. So I got tied in with them. And
so you joined the one-on-one coaching with Ryan Pineda.
Yes.
And I was
right
taking the one-on-one. I was taking one-on-one coaching with Ryan Pineda. That's how we actually met each other. And so exactly. And then so at the time, like, you were doing really well successfully as far as like the nightclub, and your real estate wasn't really like totally inside of like your game plan. But,
well, I didn't really even sign up with him for real estate. I just wanted to be the online influencer guy. So now at this point, I still have the money in the cars and stuff. And so let me utilize that and turn it into some kind of influencer. And that's what a lot of guys did. They didn't know anything about anything, but they just had the stuff, and so they could, be the influencer. And so my goal with that was, maybe I'll get into some real estate, but really I just want to figure out how to get the followers, how to get the, the YouTube channel up.
So more in the business and influencer side.
Exactly. And so me and Ryan did our one-on-one, and we're going over all my kind of stuff. And he's like, dude, because Ryan actually went to our restaurant because he was speaking in San Antonio one time, and so we ended up doing the after party there. And so he's like, you got to shut that place down. Like, I know. I don't think I can talk my partner into it. We're too deep into it. He's like, well, dude, you're just going to keep burning money. You need to shut it down now before it gets worse. I'm like, I know, but I don't think that's going to happen. So then like 2 months later, my partner comes to me one day because I had told him about it. He's like, nah, we're going to do that. And then like 2 months later, he's like, we got to shut this thing down. I'm like, okay, yeah. So, so we shut it down. So, anyways, we exited that, and so that's December of last year, actually. So, I hadn't even been that long ago.
Wow. Okay.
So it's December of last year, and so things had already kind of, I burnt through a lot of cash, been through a lot of bad investments. We're in year 3 of the club. Club was still booming last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But starting around August is when the normal, what should have happened in year 2, started happening. So about a year delay, but it started happening. Nothing crazy, but you're starting to see
slowly going down sales and like.
So whatever, but I'm also distracted with this restaurant and now trying to offboard it, and so whatever. And then January this year comes around, and our club is situated on the biggest highway in San Antonio, 1604. It's a loop that goes around the whole city, and we were on the access road of that highway. Well, they started a 4-year road construction plan to expand it from a 2-lane to a 5-lane. And so there is just, because they can't close it during the weekdays, when do they close it is the weekends. And when do we open is on the weekend.
Time for you guys.
Yeah, and so our sales, they didn't go to zero, but our profitability went to negative cash flow. So we went from flowing $60,000 a month to negative cash flowing $5-10 a month. So I mean, that's a 60 to 70,000 a month swing. Yeah. And so at this point, I'm like, holy crap, I've got to figure something out. And so I could already kind of see where it's coming. Luckily, I've always been pretty good with foresight. So I actually moved out of my personal home in November of last year and moved into an apartment. Started selling some stuff off, started moving some stuff around. And I mean, if I hadn't done a lot of that stuff, I would have been in. Again, I still have assets, right? I still own. We had just opened a car wash. We got a car wash last year as well. So you've got all this money tied up in a car wash. I've got a laundromat. I've got all this money all over the place. But my access to cash is becoming really thin, really fast, right? And so that's when the whole turnaround process started. Go back. I'll rewind. This is kind of the very opening question I guess you had. Why did you get out of the club? And so here's where we come back to. Ryan at the one-on-one, besides telling me to get rid of the restaurant, which is great advice, was, hey, you're the nightclub guy. You need to do a podcast on it. You need to do courses on it. You need to do, and I was like, no, I don't want to. I'm not going to be in this very long. I don't want to do this. He's like, no, you need to do this. And so we kind of disagreed on that, and he really left me with like, hey, that's what you need to do. You're the guy with nightclubs. You know what you're doing. You've got the business. You literally could make so much content out of it. It's free, easy content. You've already got the camera guys and everybody. They're like, just do it. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And so as I had started, my fun stopped February of last year, because that's when the restaurant opened and I was back to work mode, right? So I wasn't going out anymore. I wasn't having all the fun because I was, 1, building that business up, and then 2, having to learn and operate it because I wasn't ever in the restaurant business. And so now I'm back to work mode. Well, you're also now negative cash flowing $20-30 a month at a restaurant, trying to, it'll ramp. Hope it ramps. It might ramp. It should ramp. It's going to ramp. Never ramps. And so it's like, well, shoot, now we're in this situation. So I'm almost a year now out of like the party scene, and I'm, grinding, and it's not very fun anymore because all my cash flow that's coming from the club is going to this restaurant. And so party's over, right? And so again, I'm telling Ryan, I don't want to do the nightclub thing, and he's like, you need to do it. And my thing had been, okay, let's rewind. You're this normal guy that was homeless 15 years ago who's had this crazy, you've worked a decade like a madman, more than probably anybody I've ever met in my life, to create a little bit of success. You then like double tripled it and had a crazy run, and you're on a track to go to zero again. After you'd promised yourself in 2018 you're never going to do that again, right? You felt like you're untouchable, and you just got caught up in the lifestyle. So if anybody looking from outside would be, oh yeah, he got caught up in the night lifestyle. But it wasn't even that, right? I wasn't doing all the crazy drugs. I wasn't doing all this crazy stuff. It was just enjoying the fruits of my labor a little too much, and then making stupid, it's not being a good
decision maker, steward
of what was given to me, right? And so I could feel already in that time God saying these things, hey, I've given you all this stuff, and you're not being a good steward of it. And so what happens? It gets taken away. And so at this point, the restaurant's closing, and my lease is coming up in about a year at the club. And so I've got either renew 5 years. Well, I'm not in any position to do this anymore, because in order to renew, you probably need to throw another $800,000 into it to remodel it. And so my life is just like, holy crap, what am I going to do? And so I'm starting to pray a lot, and I had already started getting back into church, and I was like, I couldn't even imagine not being in the nightclub scene, because my whole life would change, my friends would go away, my day-to-day would change, my cash flow would stop, I'd have to start over again. Then what do you do? And so I just prayed, God, can you show me, what's next? What do I need to do? So January comes and the highway gets shut down. I'm like, oh my God, that's not what I needed. That's not the answer I needed.
Sign.
Yes, I'm like,
that's
not the answer I needed. And so that unfortunately was the answer. The answer was, you want to sign? Business is done.
Got it. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it got extremely rough for a long time. I mean, all the way up until about a couple months ago. And so, you know, we battled. We did. We made, and we were already thin. We made ridiculously cost cuts. I mean, just crazy cost cuts. And you know, we battled it out and ended up making it. I was, you know, selling a lot of my personal things and cutting down my lifestyle. So if my expenses were 25 grand a month, you cut them down to 5 grand a month. And you know, so I went through that whole process, kind of like I did the first time in the phone business, right? You know, you just have to, you know, figure out what's working, what's not working, and cut it down. So luckily I had that experience. I don't think anybody would have made what I did. You know, it was crazy. Made it as far as like getting through the storm, because it was a rough storm. Other than, you know, you could have fire sold all your assets, and then you know, you would have at least not owed anybody anything. You would have been out, but you would have been stuck at zero. So that's not the point either, right? Because I still had, you know, probably $1.5 million or so in assets. But if you can't access them, right? And I'm kind of untouchable loan-wise right now, just because, you know, you're negative cash flowing, and so, you know, private investors don't want to touch you. Nobody wants to touch you because you're burning through cash. You made a bunch of stupid decisions the last year. Your last year track record doesn't look great, so it's like there's no easy way out. You're just gonna have to grind through it. And so now I've got the landlord also pressuring me. Hey, you need to give us 6 months notice to re-sign your lease. So, I mean, lease is coming up pretty soon. I'm like, all right, well, I got to sell it. I mean, that's the only option. The only option is just sell it, right? And it's the time. As I really start thinking strategically about it, had I ever re-signed, I would have been basically 40 when that lease would have been up. Do you want to then be getting out of the nightclub business and starting fresh at 40? Probably not, right? I'm like 33 right now. I'm about to be 34. Should you probably start prioritizing your health again? Should you probably start prioritizing relationships again, your family again, starting a family, finding somebody to settle down with? And so all these things I'm starting to think about, and I'm like, well, there's your answer, right? You've got to get out of this business, as hard as it's going to be. And I just remember, I mean, I just couldn't fathom it. Like, I'm not going to have this. Like, what in the world?
It's kind of like your identity at this point, almost.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the people you hang out with every day. I mean, and even till today, it's very hard. Like, I love my team there. I have created. So even after we made a bunch of cuts and we were running really, really thin, the people who were still there when I sold the club and who are still there today were day oneers. And in the nightclub, that's not a thing. Like, people churn and burn through. I mean, how is it in the restaurants? I mean, they churn and burn. Like, it's the highest turnover. It's the same thing in like the bar and hospitality industry. It's just, I mean, everybody. And we had the same management, the same security, the same DJs, the same, you know, everybody. And so we had just such a great team we had built, you know. And I felt, you know, super sad about that part as well. So, anyways, you know, whatever, you get over it. I went to, you know, I've been going to church and praying a lot and getting way more deeper than I ever have been before. You know,
it's funny how like a good challenge or a good kind of tragedy helps us draw closer to God. There are no signs, right?
I mean, so much more than like to 10 times probably what I ever done before, right? Actually reading the Bible. Everybody says they do. I mean, but actually doing it every day, actually putting your faith in that He does have a plan and that stuff's going to be fine. Putting it into practice. And so it's been a process, and I'm not anywhere near where I want to be at. But I mean, going to church every weekend, joining Wealthy Kingdom, and, you know, getting into small groups and surrounding yourself around those kind of folks, and really making that your life. And I talked about it today at the mastermind. Rather than listening to 3 podcasts a day, listen to 1 podcast and 2 sermons, right? And so just really filling yourself with the right knowledge and the right information, and putting it into practice, and saying, okay, I'm willing to, you know, I'm ready to give this up and go on to what's next. And so that's literally just closed 3 weeks ago. I'm still
just sold the nightclub.
Just sold the nightclub. I waited about a week, and then a week later, I posted a video on Instagram, you know, just letting everybody in the town know, like, hey, I really appreciate you guys. It's been such a fun ride. You know, I'm not going to be there anymore, blah, 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 whatever. And so that got a lot of traction, and Ryan happened to see it that morning. He was one of the first people to text me. He just texted me and said, you know, hey, heard you sold the club. Congrats. How do you feel? And so I sent him a long message. I sent him like a book, you know, basically this whole story, but condensed into a text message, and just, you know, kind of what I was going through, what I was feeling. And he said, let's jump on a call today if you had time. So we jumped on a call, and he's like, so what are you going to do next? And I said, honestly, I have zero idea. And I literally don't have any idea, or didn't, you know, I've got way more clarity now 3 weeks later. But I had no idea what I was going to do, right? And so I figured I would do, you know, hustle, just different side hustles, flips or wholesales or whatever, right? I had already started kind of working on doing some flips. but I didn't have like a plan or a game plan, right? And so we get on the call, and he's, like, hey, you got to try this lead kitchen thing. And so I'm like, okay, I'll sign me up. So I signed up that day.
Basically, so for lead kitchen, those that people don't know is like Ryan's product for lead generation,
leads,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you can wholesale and like do like basically like do real estate investing, right?
Right.
So yeah.
Right. And so it's crazy. Over the last couple weeks, I've locked up a deal that I'm going to be doing.
Okay.
I've been going and looking, driving deals.
Okay.
And so even though I had done real estate in the past, the way I had done real estate, my partner's a wholesaler. He would sell me the deal, and his contractor would go do it. So I didn't really do anything but just give money, right? So now I'm actually, like, the last couple of weeks, I'm looking at different deals. We probably looked at 3 or 4 different deals, relearning the construction side, because now, I'm just firing up that engine again, because I've got it in me, because I did it for so many years. Learning how to price and comp and do all that stuff, learning about disposition and all that stuff. And so now, he says, hey, you should come out to our mastermind we're having. And so here we are this week. And, clarity has just been over the last couple of weeks, like, hey, real estate's where you need to be, right? This is where you need to go. You should have been investing in it 10 years ago, even though you didn't have the best cash flow.
I think, like, honestly, like, if you took your same passion and, like, ability to solve problems and started in real estate, like, instead of, like, the T-Mobile store, you'd be like a million, like, multiple times over. It would be crazy. Like, it would be, it would have been
because
crazy.
Because the appreciation, because everything else.
So just the vehicle is just so strong. And, like, if you add in your work ethic, like, your problem solving and leadership ability, business acumen, like, and so, like, I have no doubt, like, if we had the same conversation like a year or two later, like, you're gonna be crushing. About it. Yeah. But then, like, so you're still in the early stages of your career.
I'm in like the 2-week stage. Yeah, I'm in day one, pre-day one, basically, right?
But I mean, like, but then you have a track record of success.
Yes.
So I guarantee, like, if you continue to roll down this path, like, you're guaranteed gonna have some success.
Well, not only that, so not only do I have the track record and the work ethic and all that stuff, but now being connected with the right people, right? I've already got a good foundation back at home with my partner and other partners that I have that do construction and do, new builds and stuff like that. Then I know a bunch of realtors. I'm just knowing people from being, around for so long. And so I've already got a good base, but then connecting with Ryan and his people and his trainings and the wealthy community and all the courses and the online and then the one-on-one, not necessarily with him, but with the folks on the team, being able to jump on the calls, the weekly calls that we have. And so I have committed to myself to give real estate my 100% for the next year. I'm not going to be distracted. I've got some money in the bank. I've been able to sell through some houses that I had to that were pending. I've been able to, do a couple flips over the summer and do some stuff that we need to do. So now I've got, my bills, personal bills cut down into a super minimum, right? And then I've also got, time now because I'm not into this business anymore, and all the other stuff I do is minimal time. And
what's really interesting now, though, is like you're like the case study for like a ground zero guy who's motivated and has some like business acumen and is gonna get after it. So like I'm super interested just to watch your journey for the next year. So like every day or whatever, when you're posting stories or following on, like whatever you post online, I'm gonna be I'm invested into seeing like the next year of your life.
Well, that's gonna be the other fun part, is transforming the online persona, because a lot of people just know me online, or they know my name because of the club, and they've maybe seen me behind the bar or on the camera, or whatever. They've had whatever my persona was. Hey, this is the club guy. This is the club guy, right? So now changing that persona into this next phase of
like a real estate investor.
So it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be a fun year. I'm extremely grateful for the storm, which seems crazy, and I wouldn't have said that probably 6 months ago, because it was like, again, probably the second or the worst time of my life. But now just having this clarity and kind of knowing I don't know where things are going to go, right? I have faith in myself. I have faith in the vision of what I feel like God's given me and where he's guiding me. Just the connection. Ryan didn't have to look at my story that morning. Ryan, is the busiest guy on earth, right? He didn't have to text me even if he did see it. He didn't have to invite me to come, this meeting. And so I just really feel like the other guy that I'm partnering up with in San Antonio, shout out to Dean Fagan, lifelong friend of my dad's. He probably changed my diapers at some point. He's not a real estate guy. He's an IT guy who manages IT contracts for the government.
Okay.
He's now doing new builds in real estate, and every penny that he makes in his real estate business, he's fine. He's got his business. Every penny he makes in real estate is going to his nonprofit that he's starting to build houses in Guatemala.
Wow, that's
very
cool.
I feel like I'm partnering with the right people on a spiritual level, on a business level, and so I'm excited to see where all this goes, and it's gonna be a fun year. And so here we are. That is the story behind the club.
So, man, if you could just leave like our viewers with just maybe one piece of advice over this journey of craziness of building, losing, and just kind of giving like the perspective that you're learning. Like, what's one piece of advice or takeaway that you can leave with some?
So I'm not gonna drop everything right now, but I am starting a new brand.
Okay.
It's gonna be a multi-year journey.
Okay.
I've got it all. I've been writing this down actually for 2 to 3 years, and I just didn't know how I was going to do it. But this is again all kind of full circle. I had to have gone through what I went through. I had to be in a place to where I could be the best version of myself in order to help other people become the best version of themselves. So it'll be some kind of company, maybe not to the scale of what Ryan does with Wealthy, but it's some kind of program like that that helps folks live their best lifestyle through health, through their spiritual walk, through their mental, right? Having to be in the right mind space, having good credit, making sure that you can get loans and stuff from banks like that. And how does that even work? Having a vehicle, probably real estate or different kinds of investing, your relationships. And so it's kind of it's all in one thing, right? And so helping folks live in a limitless way, right? Because the sky really is a limit. You can really do anything that you want to. And so I would just say that life is extremely simple, even though it's very hard. But as we've talked about, even just the last couple of days in this meeting that we're at, it's really just sitting down and understanding what you want and cutting out the things that don't help you get there, right? And so that's what I mean, because again, my story could have been so much different had I had just been a little, because I'm the most disciplined, structured, hardworking guy ever, but you lose distraction even just a little bit, right? And not for bad reasons, not because you're a bad person, not because you want to do, crazy things or get wild or whatever. But if you lose focus, even just a little bit, and you're not being the good steward that you're supposed to be. Had I been a good steward with what I had, I would have been blessed many, many, many times more, and I would have had, not for me, losing the money wasn't even the worst part of it. It's the time that you lose, right? So, I started this journey with the club when I was 28. I'm now 33, and I've basically progressed none financially, right? I'm virtually in the same place, maybe even slightly worse. And so for me, it's the time, right? Something you can never get back. So anyways, my thing would just be that, life is short. You can do anything that you want to do. Life is simple. Cut out the crap you don't need to be doing. Do the stuff that you need to do. And at all costs, try to get your relationship with God right, because that is honestly the number one most important thing. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all these things, these Lambos and these lifestyles that you want. If that is, and what I'm learning is that's not even all the things anymore. All these things that you wanted will be given unto you, but those aren't the things that you want anymore. It's more so you want good health and you want good relationships and you want good friendships and you want, to help others and stuff like that. So anyways, if you change your mindset and do what you're supposed to be doing and seeking God first, you're going to be fine.
Awesome, man. Well, if people want to reach out to you, find out more about you, connect with you, what's the best way?
All socials, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Skylar, Skylar, B is the middle initial of my name, and then Moon. So Skylar B. Moon.
Awesome.
And I'm on all socials.
Thanks for coming on
today. I appreciate you. Yes, sir. Thanks.